Hey everybody, just wanted to do a quick little kind of shout out. Madeline and I are getting ready to go to HRTech. It's probably our favorite. I would say it's our favorite conference of the year. We get so much done. We see so many people. Madeline, how are you doing?
I'm good. I am definitely feeling the pressure of fall conference season, and I'm very excited for HR Tech, but I want one more week to prepare. I just need like one extra week before it happens. Are you
I
crazy? You
know.
were at RecFest.
I was at Breakfast in Nashville. Amazing. I think what Jamie and the team are doing, coming over from the UK and trying to grow that here, it's fun. Next year you'll have to go get on stage. It's totally different. I mean, it's a festival. It's not necessarily a conference, so people have to kind of get used to that. So that's where we're at. But you and I, we're on Thursday. We have a mega session at HR Tech talking about the TA tech trends,
Mhm.
and we wanted to kind of give a little bit of a highlight to people who want to come, who are attending. We also have our BFF, like, kind of happy hour or after party on Wednesday with Greenhouse. So shout out to the Greenhouse folks for helping support that. And we go from dinner and cocktail parties, and that's what, like, you need a week just to prepare to go, and then
Yeah,
a week to like recover after.
I know. I know. I'm like, do I just not drink for the whole week before? Or do I slowly build up my tolerance for the week leading up? I don't know what the right plan is, but we're a little bit dangerous to go from our BFF party to our session the next day. It's going to
Well,
be
we're late afternoon though,
That's true.
so
That's
we can we can sleep in a little.
true. Yeah. Late briefings. No 8 a.m. breakfast.
I know. I think I actually have briefing starting that day at like 9 a.m. on Thursday. But I'm like, but it's 3 hours different from our time zone, so I'll be up anyway. So I'm like,
Yeah,
by 9, like that's like noon. Like, it'll. I always tell people I'll just sleep when I'm dead. It's fine. All
I
right.
know.
Let's give them a little bit of taste of what they're going to see. So we're going to talk about the biggest trends over the last year in talent acquisition technology. Start us off. Which one of yours?
So there's so many. It's so hard to even come up with the trends. I mean, I think that TA Tech is not just because it's our session, but it's definitely the most exciting area. And I
Yeah.
feel like over half the vendors on the expo floor are going to be TA Tech providers. So it's hard to come up with the trends. But the one that I want to start with is I think you came up with this line in our slide deck, but it's CRM
You
is a
blame
hot
me.
mess. CRM is a hot mess. And we've been talking about this for years, but it is. And I think it's a hot mess for a couple of reasons. Like, I think a lot of vendors are trying to move away from CRM. Like, they're trying to be employee experience, internal mobility, skills based providers, because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
recognize that's the bigger value. And then there are at the same time a lot of smaller providers or sourcing providers that are coming into the space and saying, we want to compete with the CRMs too. So you have these very different forces happening at the same time, with some providers trying to be not CRM and some providers trying to be a CRM. And companies are still buying CRM and replacing CRM constantly. Like this,
yeah,
if we were going to become consultants, Tim, like we could be CRM consultants. We could just help companies replace their CRM and we kill it because there's so much
yeah.
business there.
You're like, oh, you don't like this one? We'll move you to this one.
We'll
And
move
by
it.
the
It's
way,
yeah,
it's the same. It's
it's the
like they're all
same.
basically
Yeah.
the same,
But
and they
the
get upset when I say that, but like it's like the ATS world, right? Everyone wants to go, oh,
Mhm.
this ATS is better than this ATS. At the end of it, the foundationally, 90% of what they do is basically the same. And with CRM, it's the same thing. And I think the hard part, if you're a recruiter in the weeds, everyday TA pro, big giant CRM is not something you'll touch, right? That's an enterprise recruitment marketing, employment branding kind of activity. You have to have your own team. And I think a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute. I have recruiters with 40 or 50 recs. What kind of automation can we give them that's CRM like? And so all the ATSs came out with like marketing automation, and people are like, oh, well, we're actually getting high adoption of that. And you're like, well, yeah, because recruiters are using it every single day.
Right. And that's what the sourcing providers are doing. I think a lot of the sourcing providers that, kind of come into the CRM market and try to do outreach, it's more marketing automation and less of like these big systems. But I think a big driver, I think they're all the same, but I think they're also not apples to apples in where they came from. Like you have some providers like Phenom or Symphony that had really strong career sites, and they started and then evolved their products and their suites beyond that. And then others like Beamery that were like more CRM focused. But I think the career site piece is really interesting because it's sticky and companies want a CRM immediately, where they could maybe like wait on a CRM, the career site they want like now.
The crazy part to me about it, about like this whole kind of platform, like the CRMs are trying to become kind of platform, kind of plays. And like you had just talked about, like, the career site piece of it. To me, the career site investment that you make probably has the lowest ROI of all the technology stuff that you'll do, right? It's basically a billboard and a job board for your company. But we put so much time, effort, and emphasis on the career site because I think it's something you can control and you understand. So you think, oh, this is going to make such a difference. And you're like, no, if you would just put all of that money and time into like your recruitment marketing and advertising, you're probably going to get way more bang for your buck than you would like. But again, we just tend to fall in love with career sites.
Yeah, we love the career sites. And I think it comes from like executives too. It's like they're looking at their competitor's career site. They maybe redid their whole website and the career site is like the missing piece. And so they're like, let's spend money here. And there's a budget there. So it's interesting. So we
Yeah.
have a
So
lot to talk about with CRM.
the
CRM is a hot
CRM
mess.
is a big, giant, hot mess. All right, here's my favorite trend of the entire year is in high volume recruiting. And it's so crazy to me it took us so long to get here. But if you think about the history of ATS, of basically being designed for white collar jobs, right? It's jobs where someone's going to be sitting at a desk or in front of a laptop or whatever, and you're willing to jump through and go through a 20-25 minute application process and jump through hoops, right? Almost every ATS or big HCM recruiting module is designed for that. But then we go, wait a minute, we have 90% of our hires are hourly hires that just need something super fast, super easy, super light. And so now you have this high volume kind of hourly conversational AI types of, kind of softwares that are out there. Paradox obviously is the big one that kind of hit the market. But you have so many others, Fountain Humanly, that are out there that everyone's kind of trying to go after that space. And so we start to see this big kind of convergence of, hey, I'm going to have an ATS that's going to do salaried workforce hiring. And then I'm going to have this kind of high volume hiring technology to do the hourly. And they never wanted to call themselves an ATS because you and I know the CFO, the CIO, like nobody wants a second ATS. But the reality is that basically they're your hourly ATS for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and it's brilliant because why are we making hourly workers go through the same experience that we do for salaried workers or professional hiring? It's a totally different experience. I
Yeah.
love that we're going to talk about like our favorite announcements for the year in a minute, but I
Yeah.
love, so I'm teasing this out, but I love the Paradox called it an ATS. I love that they're doing that. I mean, we knew companies were already using them as the ATS for hourly anyway, but to go and to say this is what it is, it's just, I mean, it's just one of my favorite announcements this year.
Yeah, and the biggest power of this is right is especially in the hourly hiring side. And I've talked to people all the time. Like we know on the tech side of salaried hiring took a big hit, in the last year with all the kind of lack of VC money and funding and all this. But we have a major demographic issue in the US. We don't have enough hourly workers. And so when you talk to companies who are hiring hourly workers, they still feel big giant pain. And all they want to talk about is top of funnel. We need more candidates. We need more candidates in this type of technology. You don't need necessarily more candidates. You just need to convert more of the candidates you have coming to you. And it's one of the big findings that we saw throughout the year was that companies really have no idea how many hourly candidates are coming to their career site or coming through the job marketplace that they have, whether that's coming through Indeed or Zip or whoever. And they're just not getting converted because they're forcing to go down this ugly, long, arduous kind of apply process versus something super simple.
Yeah, and so many hourly, I mean, we did some research on this. I know you have too. Like so many hourly workers, they don't have access to a laptop. They don't have a means of transportation sometimes to get to an interview. It can cost a lot of money to get on a train or a bus if you need to pay for public transportation and you don't necessarily know you're going to get that job. So, we were kind of expecting them to have that same experience or to have access to a lot of these same tools that, we would expect from an executive. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And again, we can go back historically and understand kind of, when HR ran talent acquisition, it was all about compliance. We needed to dot I's, cross T's, and have signed application before and then, everyone wants to throw OFCCP in the mix and like all this other, like they throw compliance into it. And you're just like, look, you can get all of that stuff throughout the process. You just don't have to. I always tell people, you don't have to ask people to marry you the moment that you meet them,
Right.
right? That's the crazy part of what we do in a traditional apply process. All right. The next trend that we want to kind of highlight and sneak out there to give people is this kind of race to AI. January, ChatGPT gets launched. The world when it got just like caught on fire and everybody had to go and start messing around with ChatGPT and figure out who are the top 25 TA analysts in the space. And of course, it was Madeline and Kyle, then Tim, then I don't know.
No, that's just we fed it that information.
It was Josh Person and then everybody else. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Nobody else. Yeah, it's
So yeah,
been the AI, the race to AI stuff has been so interesting. I mean, you started like researching generative AI before any of us were even using it. So you've seen kind of these iterations from vendors and then how people are using it for different use cases. But we just did this survey. We'll kind of announce some of this
yeah.
research at HR Tech, but the number for companies not using it, or not interested in using it at all, the number one reason they weren't was for accuracy. So it wasn't even bias. It wasn't kind of some of these traditional fears you hear about AI. It was the accuracy of it. And it just keeps getting better and better. So I wonder how much of a fear that's going to be, even in a few months.
I think the funny part of that too is it just shows the lack of knowledge of how generative AI will be used in your process and systems and all that stuff, right? Like, yeah, of course, if I go out to ChatGPT and I say, tell me, give me a recipe for blah, 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 or whatever, right? Like, can I really trust what it's coming back with? Probably not. But that's not how you're going to use it in a talent acquisition environment, right? You're going to say, hey, I want to send out a personalized message to these 25 candidates. It's gonna come up with a personalized message. You're gonna be able to read it and see it and adjust it and do stuff, and then you're gonna click go, but you don't have to write 25 personalized messages, right? So
Right.
the accuracy, I mean, like again, from a grammar standpoint, that shouldn't be an issue, right? Because they're gonna be
Yep.
able to fix all that, and this stuff has gone so fast. Like to me, that's the funny part of all of this. Now, would I be concerned potentially if I'm saying like, "Hey, pull me the top source of hire," and again, if I'm pulling it out of my own data, again, that should be pretty straightforward. All this stuff is gonna be tested. I think it's the lack of knowledge of what generative is and what it isn't that I think confuses people, right? So,
Yep.
again, I would hear, like, through the first 2 quarters of this year, it was like, "Well, Tim, the AI has been shown to be racist." Or biased or sexist. And you're like, you know that that's not possible, right? Like it's not actually racist or biased or sexist. You taught it to be racist, biased, or
Yep.
sexist. Like,
Humans are all of those things. And then, yeah, our friend Tyler Weeks, he used to he'd talk about it like if you view humans as algorithms and then you view AI as an algorithm, what do you think has more bias? And it's like we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna get to our announcements. We have more than this we're gonna talk about. We're just kind of giving you guys like a sneak peek of some of the stuff we're gonna talk about. So we want to talk about the biggest announcements in the industry in the TA space. You already kind of snuck out the first one, which is Paradox as an ATS. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I love this announcement. I mean, we already knew this. We've done case studies with McDonald's, both of us. Companies are using Paradox as their ATS instead of a traditional ATS for hourly workers. And there's lots and lots of different examples. Great Wolf Lodge, there's just so many companies. And it makes sense. It's a completely different experience where all of it is happening through conversational interface from the time that you're applying for a job, even from the time you're like programmatic is happening through Paradox as well, to the time the offer is extended. And a human can jump in at any point, but that whole experience is happening through a conversational interface. And it's fun, it's engaging, it's brilliant, and companies love it. So
Yeah.
that to me, and the fact that they called it an ATS, they didn't kind of say, we're just a new recruitment solution for hourly. It's just, let's call it what it is, because that's what companies want and that's how they're using it. I think it's just brilliant.
Well, as a point solution, one of the issues they ran into is they're enterprise, right? So you're at that point, 99% of what you're going to connect with is Workday, Oracle, SAP. And so companies kept trying to jam them back into the process early versus say, hey, we're an hourly ATS. We let us go through the entire process of hiring or getting to hire, and then like when we have to actually jam them back into the to the HCM for payroll purposes, that's where we'll connect, right? So we'll connect on the at the end and the back side versus the front side, which makes it seem it just makes it work so much better. And for companies that are like, hey, if we're going to hire 100,000 people, 99,000 of those are going to be hourly, it just makes better sense, right?
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of what we found was, holy crap, a lot of companies hire way more hourly workers than salaried workers or professional workers, right? So that level of process has to be completely different. Another one we had talked about from an announcement standpoint was Appcast acquiring Baird. Tell me why you love that.
I love that because, well, I love Appcast. I mean, Chris Foreman's so smart
Yeah,
and so brilliant. But I think what they did was, what's happening is companies use programmatic job advertising, which is technology, to be able to streamline the advertising, reduce costs, automate all of that. So you're not doing it manually and you're able to get quality applicants, through your advertising. You're not wasting that money. And that's programmatic so
yeah,
smart. Everyone uses it in marketing. We're now kind of seeing it in recruitment. But what happens is, like, the agencies have a different model. Like, agencies like to control that. A lot of agencies use programmatic providers, mostly Appcast, to support their efforts. But companies don't necessarily know that. They think they're just using an agency. They don't necessarily know they're
yeah,
using Appcast. And I think it was this strong, bold move to say, okay, we are going to acquire an advertising agency and do that from the technology standpoint and have the agency as part of Appcast. And it flips the model. It changes how you think about programmatic. And I think there's tremendous
yeah.
opportunity. But I think I also love it because I think it creates awareness in the market. A lot of companies don't understand programmatic. They don't necessarily know the value. It's so valuable. It's like a no-brainer. And this brings more awareness, I think, to programmatic as, an important piece of tech too.
So this is like, and we're gonna. I know you're gonna. There's a slide in our deck that will talk about this quote, and but this goes right perfectly to that, which is if you suck at like job advertising, programmatic will allow you to suck much faster at job advertising, right? And Appcast and all the other kind of programmatic engines out there had to deal with this, where they were like, okay, we're going to turn you on, we're going to give you the automation. It should be so much better, but then you were jamming in some crappy ad, right? So from a service model
Yep.
standpoint, giving them access to an agency, giving them access to really great, design and content development will allow them to actually be more successful on the programmatic side, right? And they probably got asked so many times, like, well, they would just go, oh, we'll work with any agency, we're tech, we'll work with any agency. And at a point, you just go, it's kind of awful to have to work with all of these agencies. How about we just have our own agency, right? It makes sense completely.
It makes sense. Yeah. I didn't see it coming and I love it. So that's one of my
Yeah.
favorites too. Um,
Okay. The last teaser we have is Eightfold got a new CEO, and it's a CEO that everybody was kind of familiar with because it was the co-CEO of Workday.
yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. And he's co-CEO for Eightfold too. So Ashu
Yes.
still will be CEO, and then
Yep.
Chanu Fernandez will be the
Yes.
co-CEO. And I think it's really exciting. I mean, I think it shows kind of the power of Eightfold to be able to have this weight behind them with a Workday
Yeah.
co-CEO as their new co-CEO, opens door for potential partnerships, customer acquisitions. I think it's all positive. But I think it's kind of coming into fall conference season. It's a very exciting announcement. My other big favorite Eightfold announcement that our friend Jason Serrato was part of was
Yeah.
their launch of workforce planning, their skills-based talent planning solution. And I love that as being part of the Eightfold platform. So I think that was
Oh,
exciting.
Madeline, we're gonna talk about skills, just not on this
Skills,
video.
skills.
We're not gonna talk
No.
about skills. Skills,
It's
skills, skills.
skills, skills, skills. I know. I think we have two very different viewpoints on skills, but I think this is probably how we're going to kick off our session at HR Tech.
Like shop, like in Vegas.
Yeah.
Skills. Everybody wants to talk about skills. It makes me want to
Everyone's
vomit.
skills.
No, I think it's super interesting because when you take a look at most people, whether it's an Oracle shop, Workday shop, SAP shop, to me, all the big HCM recruiting mods face a similar kind of thing where they do really good about what they're supposed to do. They're big, giant requisition systems that just don't break, right? And if you're big enterprise, you're gonna have one of these. It's just the way life is. And you and I both are friends with a lot of TA leaders at the enterprise, and this is it. This is what we have to deal with. And so when you want to layer on a bunch of automation, a bunch of internal mobility, a bunch of workforce planning, you end up with tools like Eightfold. I think, Chano coming over from Workday gives Eightfold just a really great avenue to the inside of a lot of Workday customers, inside a lot of Workday tech, really understanding how do those things fit together because I can't every single Workday client that I've talked with over the last probably 36 months has mentioned at some point in the conversation Eightfold as a potential. Either they're using or they're looking at it,
Yep.
or they're already going through implementation, and so it makes a lot of sense. And everybody in our industry goes, "Oh my gosh, Workday's buying Eightfold," and I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Eightfold is so expensive, right? And again, Workday will put this is what Anil told me. He'll put the appropriate amount of money to Workday Recruit, but don't go crazy because it's such a small part of the overall Workday business, right? And so it would, and again, we're talking now billions of dollars to actually acquire Eightfold if you're
Oh, yeah.
Workday, and I just don't know if that's where that money is going to go right now today.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think it signals an acquisition necessarily, but I do think it signals huge opportunities. And I think if we, like, we're going to talk about this in our session, but buying behavior right now in the TA tech stack is we're going to replace our ATS or we're going to go with Workday. We're going to go all in with Workday and we're going to
Yeah.
be confident in that decision. And we realize that that's not enough. So what are we going to do beyond that? And it's not going to be just buy 20 different disparate solutions. It's going to be let's buy a talent intelligence platform, an AI
Yes.
platform, an experience platform, and that will be, where Eightfold fits right in. And then beyond that, there'll be ecosystem providers to support it. But that's very different than what we saw a few years ago, which was place the ATS or stick with Workday and then buy 20 different things that don't integrate. Now it's let's buy talent intelligence and this is going to make our recruiting teams happy. This is the cool, we call it the cool tech. Like you're going to stick with your ATS and then you've got the cool platform.
Yep, no doubt. So, Madeline, we're on at 4 o'clock Thursday, HR Tech, right? We're the last session, like before the expo closes,
I think so. I think
right?
we're the last
Yeah.
session and we will be there. We're going to stay, we usually stay after for a while too, and we'll answer questions, go out for drinks,
I
whatever
know.
happens.
There's not a ton of Thursday cocktail parties. I think that's a miss, but I think part of it is all these vendors who have been like busting their butt at the expo for like 2, 3, or well 2.5 days are like they're just trying to get out of there. Like, how do we
Yeah.
get by the way, some of the funnest nights are Thursday night at HR Tech because the vendors just kind of let their hair down because so many of them can't get out, right? The flights are, you're West Coast if you're going east, like if you unless you're going to fly like a really late flight, which we've seen that where people will fly the red eye and jump on a kind of Thursday flight. But for the most part, most of them will stay over, fly out the next morning, and so they kind of let their hair down. Like eye candy will be hopping at
Oh
Mandalay
yeah,
Bay.
I can do. We're going to be there every night. I'm sort of dreading that.
They need to change the name because it just at some point you're just like like where are we gonna meet eye candy and there's like 7,000 people there. It's like overflowing. They're just like this is just a
I
shit
know.
show.
All these work text messages about going to meet me at eye candy.
Well, cool. Can't wait to see you. I know you're on your way to Workday Rising, so you're just full session, like just conference season's gone, gonna go crazy. I'm gonna head out to Utah and actually take a vacation before we hit HRTech because I'm smarter than you. Um,
And vacation after. This is, you have to tell everyone about your new philosophy
that's
around
my
HRTech.
that's my because you literally we go. I mean, literally, if you get 5 hours of sleep a night at HRTech, that's a good night, right? It's just you
Mhm.
just don't get enough sleep. You're going constantly. And so my thing now is I'm taking a week of vacation before HRTech, and I'm taking a week of vacation after HRTech, and I'm just like I think that's how I prepare myself.
I like it. Maybe I'm gonna have to do that next year. Smarter than what I'm doing.
I know. Yep. You're more than welcome. Come join us out in Utah. All
Awesome.
right,
Well,
everybody.
thanks, Tim.
Come see us at HRTech, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
See you soon.